guys, and welcome back to another edition of 2Gen Sports Cards. Today we are going to show you what cards we decided to submit for grading at PSA or SGC and the entire process to prep those cards.
Okay, yeah, so what we wanted to do is, we've got, I don't know, about 200 cards that we want to consider for grading. It costs like $20 a card to grade at PSA and more if you get faster service, and like $10 to $15 at SGC. And so we can't grade all these, right? We want to grade like 10 or 12 of them, something like that. And, we don't want to spend the money on something that's not going to get a Gem Mint 10. So we're going to really study what it takes to get a 10 and then check out all of our cards. So what you see on the table here is all of the cards that are worth like $20 or more, $15 or more in our collection. And so we're going to go through those and kind of take you through our journey of getting ready to submit cards for grading.
Yep.
Sound good, Max?
Yeah.
All right. So why would we want to submit cards for grading, Max?
Because you can get higher value. Say like it was a 10. You could get like 5 or 6 more of the raw card value if it was graded as a 10. 5
or 6 times more in dollars.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So it'd be worth 5 times more in dollars, as a Gem Mint 10 compared to the raw price.
Yeah.
A 9 is like 2 times the value, and if you get an 8, it's basically worth the price of the raw card. So you don't want to spend your money to grade it if it's going to come back as an 8, unless there is reason to just you want to just have it in your collection and you like the aesthetics of a PSA holder. It's got the label and it's encapsulated to protect the card. Yeah. You might just like to have it that way. And an SGC card the same way, right? It's got a nice label and it's encapsulated protecting the card. And so if you just want to have it for your collection, that's another reason to do it. But if you're doing it for value of the card, you definitely need to be cautious about what you send in so you get the right grades. Mm-hmm. Okay? Max, do you know what the 4 criteria are that the grading services use?
So the first one is centering, the second one is corners, the third one is edges, and the fourth one is surface.
Okay. All right. So, and we're going to go through these in a little bit more detail, right? But when we're inspecting cards, we're going to want to say, hey, is it centered left to right and top and bottom? And then once we've decided that it is, we'll look at some of the other things. You got to have real sharp corners, edges without any chipping, and then you have to look at the surface and see if there's any scratches or indentations, particularly on the chrome cards. You also do have to look at the back. The grading surfaces pay more attention to the front, but you can't have some sort of huge defect on the back. And you also have to prep the card so that it presents well, right? So
yeah, and you don't have like fingerprints on it.
Right, yeah. So you got to make sure there are no fingerprints and things like that, because they'll downgrade for things like that, because it's going to get encapsulated in a permanent holder, and so it's got to, if it's a Gem Mint 10, it's got to look perfect. Mm-hmm. Right? All right. So the first thing that we are going to screen for is centering, and we'll take you through a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first criteria that we're going to look for, and I think if you watch videos online, the first thing that most everybody screens for is centering.
Yep.
And so if you are looking for a PSA 10, it's supposed to be 50-50 border on the left, right, top, bottom. To get a 10, it allows for 55-45, so 55% of the border on one side and 45% of the other. And they say maybe up to 60-40, but anything past that would downgrade the card. All right, and so it's important to look left, right, and top and bottom. Okay, and so this is an example where by the eye, we would say this looks to be centered. And so I'm an engineer. I like precise things. I know you do as well, Max. And so we're going to measure this and measure our cards, and we'll show you that here in a minute. But just to show you an example where a card is not centered, on this Ozzie Newsome rookie card, you can clearly see way more white before the border on the right-hand side compared to the left-hand side. So that card is not centered and not one that we would want to send in for grading. Right?
Yeah.
All right. Some other things that you want to look for, the stamping of of numbers or anything else on the card comes after printing, so it's a secondary process.
Yep.
And you need to make sure that when that happens, that process is lined up properly with the artwork on the card. And so on this Brandon Ayuk rookie, right, the 23 of 49, to me, it looks like it's intended to be centered with this rookie card insignia. And I think you might say it's a little bit shifted to the right, but not much. I don't think it's enough that would keep us from sending it in, but that's something to look at. And another example of that would be this Justin Fields rookie sweaters, right? To me, it looks like it's intended for this Justin Fields and Bears stamp to be centered with the box for the sweater patch. And I think in this case, it appears to me that it is. And so that looks like that is centered. The one thing that we are not all that sure about is, a card like this that doesn't really have a border. And so we need to do a little bit more research on, is there anything that we need to be looking for when we talk about centering with cards without borders.
Yep.
Okay? But now we just kind of want to show you how we're going to measure our cards, and we'll take you through that process. Okay. All right, so we're back, and so we're going to officially measure this Garrett Wilson Orange Ice, as this is one that we're hoping looks like it would be a 10 for us, because we'd be excited to get that one graded. And so what we're going to do to be precise, we just don't want to go by the eyeball. And so I'm going to line up my ruler, and I'm going to say that is to the silver border there. That is 9/32. And what I'm going to do then is I'm going to come across here and get on that. And I'm going to say from that silver to the edge of the card, I'm also at 9/32. So I think left to right, I look centered.
Yep.
All right. It's also important to do the top of the card. And so we're going to pick like that edge there. I'm going to get it right. And I would say I'm at 5/32 there. And we'll go similarly here. I would say that's probably 6/32. So what is that? That's 3/16. Did I do that math right?
I think.
Yeah. So it's about a 32nd off top to bottom. I think if you do the right math, 45, 55, you're still in spec there. So I'd say we would say that is a centered card.
Yep.
And so we would be willing to move this on and pass that.
Yep.
So just to bring back an example that would definitely fail would be this Ozzie Newsome, right? Like if I measure this here from the border on the left side, or excuse me, on the right side, I'd have that at 5/32. And over here on the left-hand side of the card, I'd have it at like 1/16, so 2/32. So off a little bit, and so one that we would fail. And so that's how we're going to go through the grading process and checking out everything for centering. So we're going to take the time to measure everything and get our rejects out of the way and what we pass from a centering standpoint.
Yep.
Okay?
Okay, guys, we are back. We spent 2.5 hours checking centering on these cards.
And so from the picture here, on the left we have cards that we rejected for centering, or sometimes it was just obvious surface defects that we saw when we were looking at the cards. That was about 15% of our cards. We have a stack of like 15 cards that we need to double check. That's about 10% of our cards, and then about 75% of our cards we thought were centered within the guidelines of PSA. So let me show you a couple examples that we found that were off-centered. So this first one is this Mac Jones, the Rookies Optic. And I think if you were looking at the borders left and right, you would say that's off just by looking at it. And I don't know if you'll be able to see it in the video very well, but there's also print registration issues where there's some coloration where the ink didn't overlay properly. So this one's been eliminated. And probably even easier to see is this Justin Fields Crusade. And you can see the left-hand side of the white border is much thicker than the right-hand side. And so that one has been eliminated as well. I mentioned that we have a stack that we have to do some kind of double checking on. and seeing what should count or shouldn't count. Some of those are the optics, and I just had a hard time measuring those and deciding what the border was to and from. So I need to double check. I'm hoping that these are in because we were definitely hoping to send in the Mac Jones and the Jamar Chase rookies. And then definitely one that I'm a little concerned about, this Joe Burrow negative variation prism rookie. I think you can kind of see it here. The left-hand side is a little thicker than the right-hand side. I measured it as 60-40 left to right, and that's really the boundary or the tolerance for a PSA 10. So it's a little bit iffy. We're going to check out the card the rest of the way with edges and corners and surface. And if everything else looks good, we'll probably send it in, but I'm a little concerned about that one.
Yeah, but if there's like a minor defect, that would usually still be a 10. If there's 2 minor defects, it would probably lead to a 9.
So we may not send that one in. All right, Max, now that we reviewed centering on all of our cards, what are the next characteristics we need to look at?
Corners and edges.
And how are we going to do that?
So we've been watching some videos, and a sports car investor video that we watched there was an expert on, and he recommended that we get this 10x doors loop with a light. And so you can simply just place it on the card and you can see it with magnification.
And that's important because, right, like you can look at some cards and see some defects, but the grading services are going to be looking under magnification. And so you want to be checking your cards the same way that the graders are going to be looking at at your cards, right? And so there are no surprises. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to try and show you some close-ups of what a good card looks like under the magnification and what a bad edge or corner looks like. So let's see if we can't get that set up. All right, guys. So we have this Devontae Smith red ice rookie prism underneath the 10 times magnification, and we're here looking at the bottom right corner. And I think you should be able to see this in the video, but to us, that looks like a pretty sharp corner. And the way we're going to check it, we're going to do corners and edges together, and we're going to basically run, keeping it in the top loader. We're going to run along the edges. And on the video, you're probably going to see some glare with the light that you wouldn't see if your eye was up to the glass here. And we see very sharp, crisp edges. And so we think we're in pretty good shape here with the Devontae Smith. I'm going to bring in another card that has some very clear defects, some surface defects on the edges. So like right here on this Jamar Chase patch, you can see on that edge, that black, that should be all black, but there's that white there in that spot. And right, so that is a definite defect that would get your card downgraded. And so we're going to basically go through the corners and edges on all of the cards that we passed for centering. And see which ones stay in the hunt to get graded and which ones are eliminated.
Yep. Okay, guys, we are back. We spent a couple hours on doing corners and edges. So these are the ones that failed. These are the ones that we have questions about, and these are the ones that passed.
All right, so out of our total collection that we were considering grading, about a third of our cards have passed the first 3 criteria. And so, Max, what's the 4th criteria we need to look at?
So the next one is surface. And so surface is like looking for dents and dings and like fingerprints. That's why we're wearing gloves. And then like cleaning the cards with microfiber cloths.
Yeah, there's actually, if you look at your cards underneath a magnifying glass, you will actually see a lot of debris on there. I was really surprised. And so it's really about checking for scratches and dings, as Max has talked about, and then kind of cleaning them up to present them in the best possible light. And so that's what we're going to do with surface. We're going to probably pick out the cards that we're most likely to grade and go through those and see what passes and what fails and what we might submit to PSA or SGC.
Yep.
All right. So we also want to just show you an example of like a surface ding and how we might look at it under lights, and so we'll go ahead and do that as well.
Yep.
All right, so one thing, as we talked about, that you need to check for are surface scratches and dings. And so we're going to take the cards out of the case to look for scratches and kind of hold them up underneath some brighter lights. But I did want to show you a surface ding, and I think you can see it right there on this Christian Watson patch without putting it under magnification. But if you are looking at that picture, you can see that ding. That is something that PSA would downgrade the card for. And so we're screening out that as we look at all of our cards. Okay, so we've done our last part of inspection for grading, which was surface prep, so looking for any surface defects and scratches and then cleaning up anything that needed to be cleaned up. So we've done that. We had about 25, 30 cards that we were interested in submitting, and then we pulled out basically like 20 on top dollar what they're worth, and we're going to go through and kind of just do some pricing to see which ones we really should submit, and then tomorrow we're going to take them into the card show and submit them to PSA through Nash Cards. And so after you've done all of the inspections on centering, corners, edges, and surface, then you have to prepare your cards to submit. And it's more than just putting them in a top loader. And so what we've kind of learned is you're supposed to submit your cards in a, first off in a, your cards should be in a penny sleeve like anytime you have them, but then you submit them in a card saver. I really honestly don't know why you use the card savers instead of top loaders, but that's what the grading companies prefer, so that's what we're going to do. And then you put each individual card into a team bag, and so the reason for that is really, it's going to get shipped. You want to keep any dust and packaging debris out of your card, so you have a fresh, clean card. You took all the time to prepare it and clean it, and you don't want to get anything else on it. And so we've got some examples here of cards that we've got ready to go. We've got this Mac Jones Blue Hyper here in a penny sleeve. And just, it's obviously very simple. I don't think it's as easy to put the, cards in here as it is top loaders, but that's my opinion. And so we'll get that one in there. And you kind of got to bend that open. So that's in there ready to go. Put it in the team bag. And now you are ready to submit cards for grading. So as I said, we're going to the card show tomorrow. Nash Cards will be there as a bulk submitter, so we're going to go through the cards that we have prepared and make a decision on which cards we want to submit with them. And we'll highlight a little bit of that and the process there as we do that.
Hello guys, we are at Nash Cards and we submitted 14 cards to PSA.
All right, we are so excited that we got our cards submitted to PSA. Using Nash Cards at the card show was super easy. We walked up, we had our cards submitted in 5 minutes, and within 10 or 15 minutes past that, we could log in and see our cards within their system for grading. You can see a screenshot of our order here. As we mentioned, we submitted 14 cards. Probably our favorite cards are the Kenny Pickett Pen Pals and the Dan Marino Downtown. Again, keeping our fingers crossed for a 10.
Okay, that is a wrap to our grading video. Hopefully you had a lot of fun watching it. We had a lot of fun filming it. Also, hopefully you learned something about grading cards. We did too. So if you have any questions, just hit us up on our email. So please subscribe, like, comment, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye!
Thanks for watching, everybody!